this is the second part of our animation, and this is the more complex part. And what we're going to do this time is we are going to animate the ball. So I'm going to animate my beach ball falling into the scene here, and then it's going to bounce once, twice, a third time, and then it's going to start to roll out of the scene. All right, so that's what we're going to do. And this one's more complicated. This one's a little bit trickier. And so what we want to do is extend this out to 4 seconds. My head's in the way. I'm going to move this out, our timeline, to 4 seconds. So we're going to make a 4-second animation here. And I want to start with that whole thing out to about right here. Let's zoom in just a little bit more. Center that. Okay. So I want my ball. I want my grouping. And I'm going to start it out right about here. All right, so it needs to fall into the frame. And so what I'm going to do is we're going to create a motion path. And so I'm going to start with my pen tool. And I'm going to click. And then I'm going to click where I think it should land right about there. Then we're going to go a little bit further. This is our first big bounce. So this one is both going to be the highest and the widest or furthest apart. We're going to click. Then our second bounce is not going to be quite as high and not quite as far. Click again. And then our third bounce is even shorter and even less further apart. So right there. And then we're going to round it out, go all the way to the edge, out of the frame. So there is our motion path. Obviously, if our ball was to follow this path right now, it'd be very linear. It would just hit and then roll out. And so that's not what we want. But we've created our path, and we can call this motion path. But I want to edit these points because this is not what we're looking for. And so I'm going to use the node tool. I'm going to select the path, and I'm going to select these nodes here. So this one, this starting one, and I'm holding the shift key as I'm so I can select all of these. But I don't need to select this last one. So I will select these, and then I want to come over here to my properties panel, and I want to hit this disconnected. And when I hit that, it's going to give me options with handles now. And so now I can adjust the handles of this. Let me get back on my path. I can adjust the handles one by one. So I'm going to start here at the start. I'm going to click there. I'm going to give it a nice little bit of arc. Then I'm going to come down here and arc this one as well. So my ball is going to drop into the scene like that. It's going to hit and then bounce. So I want this one to come up and make this vertical. I'll probably pull this one almost entirely vertical. And I'm going to make this a little bit wider like so. Grab that handle right there, pull that up. Again, we're not going as high and it's not going as far. Grab that one so our hill is less. And then let's make this one, let's move this a little bit wider and then move this one out. So this is all about finessing. Pull that up, pull this one up, move this out a little bit wider. Something like that. Yeah, let's move this one and this one. And I think that is pretty good. Maybe I'll move this one. Let's go with, select this one and this one and move it a little bit more. There we go. All right, so I have 3 hills here. So my ball is going to drop in. It's going to bounce over this one, bounce over this one, and then roll out of the scene. Okay, so we've finessed that part. It's looking pretty good. Now what I want to do is set my ball on the motion path. So I'm going to click on my ball here, and then I'm going to come over here to where it says set motion path. I'm going to select that. And it wants me to click the motion path, which is what we've created here. So I'm going to click on that layer. And I want my duration to match my timeline. So I'm going to put a 4 here for 4 seconds. And I'm going to hit done. So if I hit the space bar, all right. So we have a start. Once again, it's not a great start, but we have something. Our problem is our keyframes are not spaced appropriately, and so our timing is all messed up. All right, so what we need to do is we need to move, let's move our first keyframe to right about, let's go right about there. Move our second keyframe to right in there. So, sorry, this would be our second keyframe, third keyframe, our fourth keyframe. Let's go ahead and move it to, let's see, I'm looking at, let's move this one up. Let's move this one up here. Our second key, this fourth keyframe, move that up. Move this one up and right about there. We'll mess around with those in a bit once we get our timing down. But let's go ahead and start with our first one here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on my timeline. I'm going to move this up a little bit more. And so this is where our ball comes in and it collides with the ground. So right here, I want to also, I'm going to go back to the beginning and I'm going to set a scale and I'm going to set a rotate. So we have a position, scale, and rotate. All right. So as I move over here, I'm going to set my scale and my rotate. And like we did with the very first demonstration, I want my ball to stretch a little bit as it's coming down. And then right in here, so what I need to do is my ball is already moving on and I don't want that. I want it to actually linger here for a little bit. So I'm going to duplicate this guy. So I'm going to Command C, Command V, and I'm going to move this one out a bit. And then right here, I want to add a new animation or a new keyframe, and I'm going to squash this guy down. So squashing it down, widening it out, trying to keep that volume roughly the same. So it comes down, squashes. Okay, and then it is going to spring back up again. So I'm going to select this one, Command C, Command V. It's going to spring back up again, and that energy is what's going to launch it into the next loop here, or the next bounce. And then further on, right about here, I want it to go back to its original state. So I'm going to copy this one and paste it. All right, so I have that. For the rotate, what I want it to do is I want it to rotate sort of going back, and then as it falls in, it's going to rotate back like so towards the path that it came on. And then over here, I'm going to add a new keyframe and it's going to rotate in the direction it's about to bounce into. So the direction, it follows the direction it's coming from and then rotates into the direction it's launching into. We could maybe even rotate it a little bit more. Cool. All right, there we go. We have that. Now, let's move on to our next one in line. And we'll move this up a little bit further. Let's go, actually right about there. I think that should work. Right about here. Let's go ahead and start our next keyframe. So this is where it's gonna land. We're gonna want to create another, we want to add another keyframe for scale and rotate. So we're just kind of going to use the same process again and again, but the space or duration in between these keyframes is going to get shorter as our jumps are going to get shorter. All right, so here again, I want to add my rotate back in the direction that the ball was coming from, like so. And I also want to stretch this out a little bit. So I'm stretching and I'm trying to keep that volume roughly the same. So Very good. All right. The more you stretch it out, the more it will exaggerate that motion. Stretch, stretch. Okay. So right in here, I'm going to make sure that I duplicate this position because I want it again to linger on the ground here. So I'm going to copy and then I'm going to paste. I'm going to move this roughly. Let's go right about here. Let's maybe move this one down a little bit more. Move this one down a little bit more. And right in here, I'm going to add that squash. So squash it down. And here I want to rotate this like so. All right, so squash. So our ball is coming into here. It's going to hit the ground. It's going to squash. And then right here, it's going to stretch back out. And so we want to, as it stretches, we want to copy this scale and we want to paste it. So it's going to pop back up. All right, so when it pops here, it doesn't have quite the same energy as it did. So we might want to bring that down a little bit more. Just so it does, yeah, there we go. And it's going to pop back into its original state. So we're going to copy this one and paste that one in there. So as it rises to the top of its arc here, it's going to pop into its original state and then it's going to fall back down. And we want this one a little bit before that 2-second mark. Maybe something like that. We might need to space these out a little bit more. Something like that. Okay. So right here, again, we're gonna, it's going to collide with the ground. So then we need to add another scale keyframe and we're going to stretch it just a little bit, not a lot. We are going to rotate it. So we can go ahead and copy this one. Rotating it back from the direction it came. Doesn't have to be quite so intense. Then we're going to move ahead a little bit. And we're going to squash. Oh, let's go ahead and copy our position. We can move that one forward a little bit. And right in between here is where we want to squash it down. And again, I'm not exaggerating as much here because the energy of the ball is lessening. So it's not going to squash the further it goes along with this bounce. So it's not going to squash as much. All right. And so then we want it to bounce back up. Again, it's barely stretching now because there's just not a whole lot of energy left in the ball. Bounce. Yep. That's looking good. So right here, as it hits the top of the arc, we want it to come back to its original position like so. And then let me move down. Okay. And that's looking good. So let's move this in a little bit. Right about here is where we want it to collide with the ground. Like so, yeah. So right in here, and we're going to set our scale. So this is the last time it is just a little bit, not even a whole lot. I didn't even affect it at all. Let's see. Just a smidge. Stretching it just a little bit. And then right here, we're going to squash it just a little bit for this last time as it hits the ground. Like so. So it hits the ground, squashes a little bit, and then it's going to go back to its original state. So let's do Command C, Command V, something like this. Maybe we'll stretch this out a little bit further. We want this to be pretty brief. Yeah, cool. All right, something like that. That's looking decent. Okay, let's finish our rotate here. So we can copy this one, paste it in there. I'm gonna rotate that a little bit less. And right in here, maybe rotate it just a little bit as it starts to lean and roll. And we could even maybe match that up. Cool. Now it's going to slide out of the frame. That is looking decent. Okay. All right. It's not terrible. But again, we have no easing right now. So it's going to look a little bit funky and not super smooth until we start adding that easing in. So the easing really makes a big difference. Oh, before we start adding easing, let's go ahead and add another rotate. So we're not rotating the grouping. I'm going to rotate my beach ball inside the grouping because I don't want it to rotate from this pivot point where this grouping is. I actually want it to rotate from the center. So I'm going to add a whole new rotation. So as the ball drops in, maybe it rotates a little bit. Oops. Make sure I'm on the beach ball. It rotates forward a little bit. And then it's going to hit here. And then as it bounces, I might keep this rotation. So I'm going to duplicate that. And then it's going to rotate more. So it's going to spin as it jumps. So it's spinning. So here it comes, bounces, spins, hits right here. So I'm going to copy this one, move it over top of these keyframes, set it, and then it's going to spin again. Okay, I'm going to copy this one, put it right over top. And then as it spins here, rotate it again. And then as it spins out, I'm going to go to the end and I'm going to rotate it a few more times as it rolls out. So now let's play that. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Okay. Okay, that's decent. All right, now let's see how easing can change the game for us. So my rotation, I don't have to worry about that. I think I can leave that basically as is. What I'm going to be manipulating is my position and scale here as it drops in. So again, like we did before, we want to do an ease in cubic. All right, so it's going to start slow and speed up as it drops in. So I'm doing that to both of these. And then I want to go to, and I want to grab this one, and I want to grab this one. Okay. And then I want to come down here and I want to grab these two, and I want to grab this one, and I want to grab these two, and I want to grab this one. And let me make sure that that is right. And then I believe I want to grab these two. And so for these, I am going to use, let's go with an ease. Check my notes. We're going to go with an ease. An ease out cubic. Ease out cubic. Okay. So ease out cubic for those. For this one right here, we're just going to do a regular ease in. So I'm going to select wherever it squashes. I'm going to select those keyframes. And maybe this guy. And let's try and ease in. Got my fingers crossed here because hopefully done my research right and this is going to work out. And then it bounces. So these scale, this position, or when it pops back up, needs some easing. So right here, this one, and again, this one where it pops back up, and again, this one where it pops back up. This is a slightly trickier one. This one needs some actual customization. So we're going to just go with a regular ease. And let's grab this handle. And we're going to want to create something like this. Pretty subtle, but it's going to make an S. And let's see. That should do it. An ease. And then let's play that, see how that's looking. Okay. What happens if we just, did we do that right? So we want to do, yeah. So our ball is going to fall in. And then right here at the end, we got a little bit, so it's speeding up. So right here, I believe, is where our issue is. And so what I need to do is I need to make this one an ease out. No, this one right here. Let's try and make this one an ease out. See how that does. An ease out. All right, we can even make it a little bit more subtle. See if that helps us out at all. Does that help us when it catches that roll? Oh, there we go. That's better. So it drops in. Ooh, okay, not bad. Bounce, bounce, bounce. Cool. So what we might, so you could spend some time finessing these. Maybe this is a little bit too fast, so I could space these out a little bit more. Let's see, how does that do? Maybe even a little bit more. Maybe I could space this one. Okay, let's try that. It's not terrible. We could continue finessing this, but then this is sort of the, maybe I'll move this up a little bit. This is kind of what makes the bounce so kind of subtly tricky is it's hard to get that motion just right. And so maybe we will continue to finesse our curves here. Do we like where that's going? All right, let's try that. Boom. That is not terrible. And I could manipulate the squash and stretch maybe a little bit more, but I like the personality of the ball. That feels pretty good. Yeah, maybe we'll stick with that. I would enjoy seeing what you all come up with in your own designs. Probably if I had more time, I would continue tweaking this, but you guys would get bored with that. And so this is a great start, and I'm going to end it here. And I'm going to leave it up to you guys to just continue finessing this until you get that right feel of your ball. But as you can see, the easing really helps a lot with the animation. And so continue working with that ease, get your motion down, and get your timing right. And that's really, really make that bouncing action believable. So I hope you guys have found this helpful, have enjoyed this tutorial, and look forward to more in the future. So, all right, take care. I've gone back through and finessed it a little bit more and moved some keyframes around and edited my easing a little bit. And now I feel like the motion is just, it's a lot smoother and more pleasing. And again, it's just in how you finesse those keyframes and the easing. And so one thing I did change here about the start, because it came in really hot, is I used an ease in here at the position keyframe and then just manipulate it a little bit more to make it a little bit more subtle. So it just drops in. That's a nicer drop. And then I spaced I moved some of these keyframes around, made them a little bit smaller, and then this end hill here, this last jump, I spaced that out a little bit more and made it not quite so steep and subtle. And so I just wanted to show you that. I figured you could watch me do it all and see all the steps that I did, but it's kind of tedious. So I think you guys can probably figure it out just with a little time, a little patience. All right. I hope you all enjoyed that. All right. Well, that wraps it up for my time here. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial, and I hope you will stay tuned for more to come in the future with SVGator. Thanks again, as always, and yeah, I guess it's time to bounce. All right, bye.